Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, where we cover shows about pirates that's rated TV mature. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian. You get me with these things sometimes. Like I think, is you gonna go for the crazy joke? And usually you do, but
Usually I do. This time I didn't.
yeah.
Because I'm a good person. Hey, you know what a pirate's favorite letter is?
Well, okay. What's your twist on the joke?
No. I want to hear. What do you think a pirate's favorite letter is?
Well, the obvious answer would be R, but I'm guessing you have a different one.
Well, a pirate's first love is the C. However, without the letter P, they're just irate.
That was actually pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And not good enough for a laugh, you know. Heaven forbid. Just more like a chuckle. Or an inside chuckle. You're a Scandinavian man, so you're just like, that's funny.
My mic was muted, so you didn't hear me laughing or see me.
Yeah,
laughing
that's
because
what it was.
My screen froze as well, just at the time that I laughed.
I'm sure. What good excuse?
Never mind the fact that you can see the signal when I'm muted. That glitched. It all glitched at the same time.
Yeah, ignore all evidence to the contrary. You definitely laughed, and there was technical issues. I get it.
You know what? Burying your head in the sand and ignoring what's going on is kind of a good segue into this show.
Is it?
Because that's what the people of Atten are doing.
That's true. Can't say I remember now, Atten. All right, so I literally say that to my kids all the time, and it gets Jack to like. So Jack doesn't like to laugh, kind of like how you did with that joke.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to laugh, like, but he will like crack his smile, and then he'll like kind of look away in shame. And so he's kind of in that almost preteen age where it's like, Dad can't be funny, but I am, so he has to deal with it. So I will usually do that to try and get him to like crack a little bit, and that's pretty successful most of the time.
Do they know what you're referencing?
Yep, because Angie and we started watching this show. So, if you clicked on this episode, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Skeleton Crew. Great TV show. Came out now we're almost like 5 months about 5 months removed from when it first came out. And it was such a refreshing Star Wars property, especially after the crap fest that was at the Acolyte. And so that came out, we're watching it, and I'm like, this is really, actually, I started watching it. I'm like, this is really good. So I start having Angie watch it because I'm like, I know she's not a huge Star Wars fan, and she almost was on today's podcast, but a couple things stopped her from being able to be here tonight. And so I started watching it, then I brought her in and then re-watched it, and then I was like, wait, the kids would actually like this, and then we watched it as a family, and so they all really enjoyed it, and then we bought like the Onyx Cinder Lego set for like $100 at the Mall of America shortly after. So that's the story of how my kids started watching it. I didn't know, but I'll give you the perspectives too as we're going through it.
I didn't know they made it. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. They make Lego everything.
They do. And so it was really cool to see, because we saw it too, like we were in Mall of America shortly after we were done watching Skeleton Crew, so it was like fresh in their minds.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the second best to me Star Wars show, behind Andor, which we get a second season of it soon, so hopefully that'll be just as good as the first.
So you put this Andor, then this, then I'm guessing either Mandalorian or Boba Fett?
Yeah, Mandalorian would be third. Mandalorian's good. It's very solid, but I think especially the tight focused nature of this one season show was really strong, and because it was so creative, this is a unique show because it's creative but yet very familiar.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what I like about it. So I like Star Wars, and Star Wars, you got like the 9 movies, the 3 trilogies is like your main proper, and then you got like, Solo and Rogue One, and then you have all the different shows, and it's set in the world. Like they talk about Jedi and droids, and you see a lightsaber a few times, but we don't need to have it be a big like, oh look, it's Luke Skywalker, or it's Obi-Wan, or it's C-3PO. We don't have to bring in the heavy hitters, which they could have, because they could have easily shoehorned somebody in. But yeah. I think it works well on its own, that it's these new characters within the framework of the world that we know.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is exactly how Star Wars needs to go in the future. You can still have some things that are tied a little bit more into familiar characters we know, but the universe is ripe for this sort of storytelling to do a different sort of genre. And actually, early Marvel did the same thing where that was what people loved about early Marvel is that you had a movie like the Captain America, the first one, that was a more like period piece war drama, and then you had Captain America Civil War, or not Civil War, Winter Soldier, that was more a political thriller, and you had Guardians of the Galaxy, which is more of a space opera. And so like they took these different genres and they applied them over their hero that they did, but it's still in the MCU. And then when they brought them together, that was more the generic superhero movie. I think Star Wars has a lot of possibility to do, let's find different genres. And so we did kind of have the political thriller Andor, and also had a little bit of a heist and a jailbreak and etc. in there. They kind of had three different genres this last first season that they did.
Yeah.
And so I think that Star Wars is at its best when it's doing that and leaning into the creativity of Star Wars, but with this filter on it.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think it works better. It's like the one thing that something I like Marvel, but one thing that you have to think about in universe a lot of times is, you have your Avenger movies, then all of a sudden you have like a Captain America solo movie or a Thor solo movie. And you have to remember, in universe, there are like 15 other superheroes who are ignoring this current threat right now. And you have to figure out like, oh, they're not helping out because of blah, 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 blah. And you kind of have to, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. Whereas it doesn't really have that same issue with Star Wars.
Yeah, there's times I think that they try and address that a little bit, and there's times where it's like it makes sense that no one else is responding to this threat right now. Like, let's say Ant-Man Quantumania, where they all get sucked into the quantum realm. Yeah, it makes sense that no one else is down there with them. So
yeah, but like, was it Thor 2 where the frost giants or whatever the weird one, was that the elves?
Yeah, the dark
attacked DC. Like Captain America, Iron Man, they all could have gotten there. I mean, it's better that it's not their movie, but I keep thinking like, what's Tony Stark doing?
That's one of the few where they got away because it was in London. But that was one of the few where they have Kat Dennings' character. She's on the phone. She's like, I can't get a hold of anyone at S.H.I.E.L.D. And like that was their explanation because it's still early enough in Marvel where it's like, by the way, we are aware there's other heroes. This is how we're going to say no one's here. All right? Just go along with it.
All right.
And actually, if you watch the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, they had the episode of the week that followed the premiere of Thor: The Dark World actually started with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being at like one of the libraries that was like destroyed when they're all kind of looking out the glass and like, oh, it's Thor out there. They were in there cleaning up after the devastation of it. So S.H.I.E.L.D. was on the scene in universe after everything had happened, that they got there a little late.
I've still never seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
The first season, like you have to get to a certain point in the first season before it picks up, because it also ties in the movie. And when it ties in the movie, you're like, oh, this is a really cool moment. And then from there, it's a lot better. Right. And then seasons like 3 and 4 and 5 are all like really fantastic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to Skeleton Crew.
I know. How often do we do this? It's been 10 minutes now. Let's go back to the show we were talking about that it's titled after.
Yeah. I think this one, I like this one a lot better than some of the other shows that they've been doing. Like, it didn't take me a while to get into it because they connect you to the characters right away, and that gets you into it. And there's just something about like a group of like, it's almost like the Stranger Things thing where they have the kids who are basically just going on their own adventure, and they're a little precocious, and you find their own, like they become the protagonists against the adults.
Yeah. And I like, well, I'll get into that in a little bit. We can talk about characters because the 4 main kid characters, it's, for me, kids as the focus is a little bit of a hard sell. I don't like buy into that quite as much as maybe some other ones do. I know like my wife enjoyed it and she really liked that perspective, but for me, like I needed those adult characters, and we had some really solid, like in both Jude Law and then Nick Frost's character, the robot.
Yeah,
both of those two were fantastic adult characters. But thankfully, these kid characters were also written pretty well.
Well, they were written as just old enough. They like were not teenagers yet, but they weren't like they were old enough that it was believable that they were going on this. It's not like they were like 5 or 6 years old. That would be too young. And I think you kind of lose some of it if they become like 14, 15 years old. I'm guessing they're like what like 9 to 11, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I think you're right. For me, I think the weakest. I know that both you and I, when Fern first came on this scene, she's meant to be a little bit like annoying and a little abrasive.
Yeah, you grow to love her so much.
Yeah. So she's not like, oh, this is the best character, but she does have a good growth, and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But I felt like the only flat one of those four was probably KB, because she didn't have a ton to do. She it's almost like she was there just to kind of be the tech person, and I didn't see a lot of personality from her, and maybe that's because she's like part robotic or whatever. But I mean, the full-grown robot had more personality than the half-robot kid.
Well, I agree with that up until they had that one episode where she actually started to fight with Fern and be like, "No, I'm not just gonna follow you." And that's when they had the unusual pairings of Fern and Neil, and then Wim and KB. I liked her after that, and I liked her thing at the end where like it's her and Wim's dad on the ship. Like, you know how to fly this thing? But I agree. Her and Neil, both of them had a little bit less to do than Wim and Fern are presented as like the co-leaders, basically fighting for power a little bit in the beginning, but at the end they're like fully on the same team.
Yeah, the Rodenberg household was very much Team Neil. Elijah loves elephants. He's always loved elephants. So of course the elephant-like alien, and Neil's like that classic bro character too. Yeah. Like I got your back. I'm like he's the Turk to the JD of Wim.
Yeah, he is. He probably could have gone on our sidekick bracket if we had watched it. I mean, if the show had come out when we did that episode. I like Neil a lot. They didn't. There were times I feel like they could have given him something to do, but he was really that like the heart of the team. I think for sure.
Yeah. I talked a little bit with our buddy Jeff, who we also wanted him on this podcast. Just circumstances prevented him from being here today too, and so he's been on all the other Star Wars ones. I would have loved to have what could have been. I would have loved to have both Jeff and Angie on, because Angie's like. What she's like Stella on How I Met Your Mother in terms of like Star Wars, like, and then the big dog shows up and everyone can understand him for some reason. Like she will nitpick stuff with it because she's like, why is every planet its own ecosystem? That's so stupid. So I kind of wanted to see what her and Jeff would do like together talking about Star Wars property. But Jeff was when I was talking about it, he was saying how much he really enjoyed Wim and really loved his like kind of his head in the clouds, the like dreamer sort of attitude of Wim, which I get. I can see that.
Especially at in the beginning, it's you kind of get weird vibes from it. Sure, it's like, yeah, they're protected in their own little environment, but it almost seems like everyone's on this conveyor belt. There's no choices. Everyone has a droid spying on them in their own home. I mean, yeah, we have Alexas and stuff, but like this is Alexa can't physically go and block the door from you. And like, all right, you're going to grow up. You're going to take these tests. You're going to work for the supervisor. You're going to do the great work, and that's your life. And there's no other path. Otherwise, you're like a rebel. A rebel means something else in this world, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's why Wim and Fern, I think, come center stage, because they're the ones who question it. Fern does it very abrasively, and that's a little hard of a pill to swallow, I think, sometimes. Whereas Wim, like, he does have that desire. Like, there's something more, the Belle from Beauty and the Beast. I want much more than this provincial life. Mm-hmm. And so, he dreams and he has big aspirations, but he's kind of like stuck in the expectations of who he's supposed to be. And I find that a lot more interesting than the, hey, I'm not going to do what you told me. I'm going to do what I want to do sort of attitude.
Yeah. And this is post Empire Falling, right? This is post Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, this is the same time period as Mandalorian. So Empire has fallen, but we haven't quite gotten to the First Order rising up of the sequels.
So what time period did Atten like go dark and like become hidden? Was that during the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, or is it just recently?
I don't know for sure. My guess from what I got from the context clues was that it would have been in between the prequels and the original trilogy, that like in similar time of like the Order 66 and etc. Because the Empire, the Republic credits felt very much of like the original trilogy, or not the, I'm sorry, the prequels, like their currency, because they talk a lot about Republic credits in the prequels. But we don't see as much talked about that in the original trilogy, I think. Man, this is a good question for Jeff, because I could have just lied right then, Jeff. We're like, no, let me give you the detailed history down to the month.
Well, are they doing a Skeleton Crew too?
They have not confirmed it yet. The showrunners have said they do have an idea for it if there's the interest. I don't think it got enough watches to verify to get a second season.
Okay.
But
well, maybe whatever the next Star Wars thing is, we can have Jeff on. He can give all the knowledge.
Yeah,
and, I think I've said the same thing, and I'm sure he would have an answer for this. You talk about how, like Angie said, the planets are their own ecosystem. The thing that I always wonder about with stuff like this, and even a little bit into Marvel too, they say, I'm going to go to planet this. Okay, how big is Earth? And they always happen to land right in they treat planets like cities.
They do.
Like, okay, go to Dagobah. Dagobah could be Earth. What if you land in China and Yoda's in LA or something? Like, you're not going to just stumble upon him.
Because the Force directs them. You also have to understand that the Force has a mind of its own, it has a will of its own, and we're following the main character. And so the Force wants this main character to meet this other main character because they're both unique and special. The Force isn't going to be like, hey, John Reglablue of Planet 5, I think that you should meet Yoda. They're like, no, this guy doesn't matter at all. They're not going to pull him to Dagobah for no reason.
I can tell you're a pastor because you used a lot of words to say, I don't know.
Rude. The other thing about these kid characters that I want to go back to, one thing with Fern, is that I do appreciate how resourceful, and that's one thing that you can apply to all the characters, really, including Jude Law's character. Was it Jod? Yeah, Jod. That they're really good at thinking on their feet. And so Fern's, like, her reaction with the robot of being like, I'm the captain. I killed the captain. I'm the captain now. And, like, how often she will employ that. I was like, that's a great plot device to get this giant robot on your side for no reason. Yeah. I thought that was good writing and good characterization for her.
I love how a couple episodes in, he became clear, okay, this is the droid we're going to love. He's like whatever the droid is that became the ship in, was it Rogue One or Andor?
Yeah. Solo.
Solo.
The droid that became the ship was in Solo.
Yeah. Like kind of like that. Like you know that he was going to be a fan favorite. And yeah, he's like grizzled and stuff, but you can tell he likes these kids as much as a droid can.
Yeah, we like him. SM-33 is great.
Yeah,
he's got some awesome lines. Even when he's like, "Oh, I have to kill you now," I'm like, "No, come on, man, you're the favorite."
Yeah, and it was almost at certain points, it almost got like video game vibes when we kept saying, what you said earlier, I can't say I remember, no, Atten. And they keep repeating the same thing, they get annoyed by it. And there was, oh, wait a minute, here's the key to get past it. What do you know? And then they get him to unlock his memories. How many video games have you played where you're stuck at something, you keep hearing the same thing over and over because you can't figure out how to get past that point? That's the same feel of that episode.
Yeah, and they even have an episode titled "Can't Say I Remember." No, Atten.
Yeah.
But okay. So we haven't talked yet about Jod, but I do want to say SM-33. Like, I go back and forth on who's my favorite, but I feel like it's pretty certain it's SM-33 is my favorite character of this show. I think Jeff had said Jod is his favorite. Who is your favorite in this episode or in this show?
I think by the end it had to be Fern, even though I hated her in the beginning because we were following Wim. I liked her a lot. She ended. I mean, yes, I like Neil. I feel like if they did a little bit more with Neil, because a lot of times his role in the plots was always just like whatever's left over was Neil. And I would have
Yeah.
loved to see them give him like, hey, he's super good at this, and then that comes in later and he gets to use that. But they didn't. If they did that, it would have been Neil. But I gotta say I like Fern.
Let's go to Jod because he's the star,
Yeah.
not like the star, but he's the front billing,
Yeah.
you know. And so Jod is the other of my favorite characters. I love him a lot. What I really love that kind of his characterization that he does of, they introduce him, something's up with him, and they do because it's a kids show too. They do very heavy winking at the audience, like there's something about this guy. But I thought that they were doing that so much that it's going to be like, oh, he's a bad guy. He actually is a bad guy, and then wait, actually no, goes against that expectation, and he's actually a good guy with a bad checkered past. So I'm actually I really appreciate the way they villainized him, because even though he ended up being the villain, he still had his humanity about him. You could still see like the hesitation of like, he used the fear to scare the kids, and he killed he killed the robot, even though he survived, and he killed the other like pirate guy leader.
Yeah.
But he never showed that he was really going to harm the kids unless he really, really had to, which I know how that sounds, but like that, he had enough humanity to be like, I don't want to do this. I want to threaten him to do what I want. I still want to get what I want, but I'm not a monster. And I thought that was great characterization.
Yeah. When he turned on the kids in the second to last episode, I thought we were waiting for like an 11th hour, like, oh, there's a secret plan. He's really a good guy all along, because of the journey and the connection he made with the kids. I didn't think they were going to actually make him the villain. I thought he was going to be like at the end, hey, I had to do that because the blah, 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 blah. I thought that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, a little bit of a Jack Sparrow-y vibe in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was refreshing that they stuck to the guns, but they still, like, there's still enough about him that you're like, I can respect this villain because he's just not like this scum of the earth sort of guy. He's just a greedy one who's also damaged from his time with the Jedi, and let his heart get blackened, so to speak.
We assume that whoever his master was killed in Order 66.
Yeah, I think they said that specifically, that his master was killed in front of him.
Yeah.
And Padawans traditionally are really young. So it's like, as a young kid, he saw this guy that he looked up to, that he loved, get murdered in front of him. So, you can understand where he's coming from. You can understand why he has a very cynical view of the people around him. And again, another thing that makes him compelling is that you're like, okay, I get it. I see why you've landed on the path you're on, and there is a possibility of redemption. But then in those last 2 episodes, when he's like threatening the family and really like just fully going into his plan, then you're like, all right, you're 100% of the wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like you want to root for him. You're like, all right, I want him to be like you said, that Jack Sparrow type. I want to root for him, but no. By the end, it's like, okay, they're not going to let us do that. They're not going to give us that thing at the end.
Yeah,
and he kept saying, I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt you. But even when the ship is falling and they think the KB is falling to her death, he's like, she's not going to make it, and didn't really seem that concerned about her.
Yeah. And one thing I said with the kids that really applies to Jod is his resourcefulness, especially when he takes that turn as the villain, and like the couple things like, oh yes, I'm the escort, so you're gonna respond, you're gonna listen to me now, everyone, and like constantly trying to be the one, like he one-ups with Kim when he realizes she's tracking him, and then it's like, by the way, these X-Wings, they're the bad guys, they're the terrorists, we've got to get out of here. And like, he is that cockroachy type of, I will survive no matter what, I have to adapt in every situation. And there's a lot of fun to watching characters adapt and get out of these situations that the writers put them in. And all 5 of the 4 kids and him do a really good job of doing that throughout the series.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes it's their skill, sometimes it's just happenstance and luck, or usually a combination of the two that gets them out of it.
Yeah. I think the one that like really solidified it for me too was in that last episode when he gets up and meets like the overseer, and the overseer is like, "You are not from somewhere else. We know that, so like we're gonna arrest you." And it's like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to destroy the head computer. It does that like super fast, and it's just like immediate pivot into like now I gotta take care of that.
The whole series we had the tease of the supervisor. The supervisor is so mysterious. And then that was revealed and rendered incapacitated in like what, a minute? Kind of I thought it was either going to be. I thought there was a possibility that the supervisor was going to be like a character we knew from the Star Wars universe, just because they were being so secretive about it. And it didn't super surprise me that it was a droid, but I thought the droid would then be the big bad that they would have to all come together to fight. And like, no, he just killed him.
Yeah. Especially because like that the head droid, the supervisor droid, was smarter than you would have guessed he would have been, especially based on the intelligence level of all these follower droids of like I'm sorry, it's been a couple months since I watched these episodes, so I don't remember the like specifics of stuff that I'd say, but like the parents bringing these issues to them and them saying like, oh no, this is the rule and this is the law and we can't go outside the law, and the parents like, are you kidding? Like, we have to go get them. We like just trying to appeal to any sort of sense, like common sense that these droids didn't seem to have.
Yeah, like the sense for life, because if it's a droid, a droid's gone, who cares? We just make a new one. Like, whereas like you're telling parents, oh, your kid ran away, just abandon them, they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. So then for the supervisor to be like, I'm not as, especially these droids, like as soon as Jod's like, by the way, I'm the envoy, or I keep forgetting what, the ambassador, maybe? Emissary, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. Oh yeah, I'm the emissary, and then for the supervisor to say, "No, you're not. I can tell you're not." Yeah. Like to immediately switch gears was smart.
So do we find out who the emissary was? I think it's assumed that the real emissary, had gotten killed by the one captain that had been there before. I think.
So I think it was just like it was a job. And I think it was just a discontinued job. I don't know if like the guy would have gotten killed, but I think that there would have been something along the lines of this planet got lost in the changeover of power, and that's why no one comes to that planet anymore, because they talk about how it's been a while since anyone had come to the planet. Yeah. And so, and especially then that the credits are not as widespread as they once were. And that is the one thing where I got to say, Jod, you're not very smart, because he does not understand the economics of supply and demand. And like when he walks into the vault, and they're saying like this is just one of many vaults on this earth, like one tiny little gold thing everyone freaked out over. And so pallets upon pallets upon pallets on shelves and shelves of all this gold that was like a waterfall, like to get even one whole vault of that onto a ship and taking it out, you're devaluing those gold credits drastically the more that you bring into the outer universe.
Yeah, but was he really trying to do that, or was he trying to just keep them for himself? So only he himself could buy whatever he wants, but now he wasn't going to share them.
I'm not saying he'd share them. I mean, maybe he'd share them with his pirate crew just so that he could buy their, whatever. But like even using them, like just to buy whatever, still you're putting them into open circulation.
Yeah,
but
unless he was smart enough to do it little by little, like not going out, it's like the Walter White problem. He's like, I have more money than I will ever need, but I can't spend it,
Yeah. So I think, you take one pallet out of there, you're set for life and a couple lifetimes probably after that.
Yeah, you wouldn't even need a full pallet of it.
But all right. So Brian, any like top moments from the show that we haven't talked about? Like one or two ones that are like, this stood out, made me love it, or bad moments that you hated?
One moment I loved when they made friends with like the giant sea monster in the adult spa episode, which like they told the line, they implied that they could have made a lot of adult jokes, but they didn't really. They just made like kids can't come here because it's an adult spa, but then they made friends with like the giant sea monster underneath that was about to kill him. And then I think it was Neil was like, "Hey, we're just chilling here with Chuck or whatever they made his name." And it's like this horrifying sea creature. Hey, look, I'm cool. Well, you want to go down below? Cool, I'll just pound the floor for you.
All of that, like in that episode, the whole spa planet concept, I really loved. I'm like, this is just out of the blue.
Yeah.
When they're running out of ecosystems, so at some point someone's like, how about a luxury hotel resort? Like, that's genius.
Well, they said pleasure yacht. Isn't that exactly one of the things they had at the Grand Master in Thor Ragnarok? Didn't he have like pleasure yachts?
Jabba has a pleasure yacht. If you remember the Return of the Jedi, when they're like held over the Sarlacc pit, and then like the big ship next to it.
Oh yeah,
that's his pleasure yacht.
Okay, so it's kind of a throwback to that.
Yes. Thank you for making me say the words pleasure yacht as many times as I did.
Of course. That was good. And then I like was it Kim the owl? I guess I just like weird creatures.
Yeah. That was one that Angie's like, because she doesn't like that kind of thing, so she's like, but I'm like, the characterization of it is great. Like this really, like Kim was one of the nicest strangers that they bumped into.
Yeah. It just happened
not
to be
including like the X-Wing guys, but I mean they're the police stand-ins. Yeah. Which, by the way, the final episode just pretty much amounts to a really complicated episode of quick, call the cops.
Yeah, call the cops and open the gate.
Yep.
Yep. Would Angie have liked her better if she wasn't an owl?
Yes.
Okay.
She has a problem with anthropomorphic animals.
So she's not a Chewbacca fan?
No.
Gotcha.
What was I gonna say? I was trying I said the spa planet thing. I thought the pilot was really good, even though it didn't have either the two best characters in the show. But like that pilot was a really strong start to show you the world building. I thought that they did a really good job with that. And like immediately when I'm watching that first episode, I'm like, yeah, this is a show people are gonna love.
Yeah, I mean, you had to introduce the four characters and the home world of AT-AT and to kind of get the feel of it. But yeah, the show definitely took off once the four of them left the planet.
Yeah, I would say that. There was that actually the episode I mentioned earlier. I think it's the fourth episode. Can't say I remember. No, AT-ATN, where they go to like that. It's like a neighbor planet to AT-ATN, but it's not quite that, and that's where they find the coordinate.
There was like a bunch of them, and AT-ATN's the only one that survived.
Yeah, and it's like this is a like war torn planet, and it felt like it was a little bit of filler. Even though it wasn't, it still moved the plot forward. But it was like this episode started to get a little slow for me. Then they got to the spa planet and it picked up. And then when they had the Jod turn, that was when it. So like started off strong, ended strong, middle got a little weaker.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Were the other planets in that group that like it was the last one? Were they all like treasuries or mints, or is that what they all were, or do they all have different purposes?
I'm not entirely sure. I think they all might have had different purposes.
Okay.
My guess. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
This is where having Jeff in here would come in handy. Like having a lore guy, that's what we need. Also,
the first pirate planet they went to, were you also thinking this is just like Nowhere with the Ravagers from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, it definitely gave me big Guardians of the Galaxy vibes. 100%.
Yeah. So it would just change Ravagers to pirates and Nowhere to whatever that planet is, and that's basically the same thing.
Yep. But like, I thought the set pieces were really good. Like I was very intrigued. Like, okay, how are they going to get back? And it was still fresh and early enough in the series that I wasn't like, you know, and it also gave us the fun escape as John was trying to get out of there, and then like what they snapped the cable and it flies back and smashes into the platform and all that.
Mhm.
It was a great escape sequence. I thought the whole
Yeah.
episode of that was really good.
Well, and then like he told Neil, "You're gonna steal the ship," and then women Fernor was like, "What? I want to do it," and they're like, "You guys get the gunners." They're like, "Okay, we're good."
Yep. Well, what would you say if you are making a second season? What would you want to see from the second season?
Well, I'd want to see, first of all, what did they end up doing with Jod? I thought like they don't resolve that. I mean, they won, they got the good guys in, but we never saw like him get arrested or anything. He just was. So I think they have to have him in there somewhere. He's probably going to be starting from a point of being in the prison, and they can't keep doing the I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy thing with him. But you'd want to have the 4 kids and somehow find a way to get those 4 on an adventure again. And they could bring Jod with him, or they could have. I mean, I feel like they have to have SM-33. They could, and I feel like you'd at least have to have Jod as a. If he's not going to be in the show, he'd have to be on there as a cameo in the first episode for some plot exposition with him.
Yeah, they left him like he definitely like was the linchpin of the show. I know the heart was the 4 kids, but not. Even before he was a villain, he was a big motivating factor of this show. And they did show like him like surrender. And so he was captured or arrested or whatever. We just didn't see like where he got shipped to, or like if it was thrown in an X-Wing and taken to some other planet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we did a second season, we would need a turn of Jod as helping them and getting his humanity back in a redemption arc for him. And kind of go the exact opposite route that he did this one, where like he starts off as he's the good guy, but there's something about him and he flips bad. The next one would be he's the bad guy, but there's something about him and he flips good.
As you're talking, this may be the nerdiest thing I've ever said on this podcast, but
boy, that is a high bar that you've set already, but go ahead.
This show could do the Spy Kids model, where the first one, the kids inadvertently went on an adventure, and then the second Spy Kids, they're working for the organization. So that could be the kids could be working for the organization, and then the villain from the first Spy Kids ended up like being an ally in the second one, just like you're saying. So that could be, if they're going the Spy Kids route, that's kind of the method they go.
Yeah, they could do that. The good old Spy Kids route.
You know, the Oscar-worthy movies. Okay, they're dumb movies. I'll admit that, but I watched them and I remember them.
Brian, have I told you before how I am in a movie with Junie from Spy Kids? I was an extra in a film that was shot in Omaha, and in between takes we're resetting for like one of the takes, and so we have to go back into the school because it was filmed at a school, and so I held the door open for a bunch of people as they're coming back in, and Junie walks by and he's like, "Thank you," and I'm like, "You got it, Junie." I didn't say that because that's not a thing you'd say, but I was like, we interacted. I've talked to them.
So you had a brief moment of interaction with Meghan Trainor's husband.
Is that him?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I guess he is that base because she's all about him.
So
that's like one. That's like I think I know like 2 Meghan Trainor songs.
I actually could name a bunch. I think that minor tidbit. I think that Meghan Trainor and Kelly Clarkson are both underrated, and then Taylor Swift is overrated.
I do like Kelly Clarkson's music.
Yeah. Like Taylor Swift isn't bad, but she's way overrated.
Not just like the Since You've Been Gone and Behind These Hazel Eyes, but like Piece by Piece, and there's another one that I could really like that was more recent. when I hate to say it, but when she's not skinny. There's some from her albums when she's not as skinny that she's are really good.
True. Did anybody think, clicking on Skeleton Crew, they're going to be talking about Meghan Trainor and Spy Kids?
Of course, obviously.
Oh, and Kelly Clarkson, yeah.
And Kelly Clarkson. Kelly Clarkson! All right. Well, that is about it for our Skeleton Crew conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We've already ruined it, so like we can't say it now. But like, go back and watch it. It's a good show. It is top tier Star Wars content, and I hope that they make another one. If you are like, if you've already watched it, go watch it again. Encourage them to be like, oh, people are still watching the show, because we have that much power and that many followers that if they all listen, that'll tip the scales.
Yep, if you watch a few times each.
We're so popular, guys.
Yeah.
Tons of people. All 9 billion of you listening.
What I want to do, I'm sure people have done this, I want to go back and watch the Star Wars universe in chronological order. I think Phantom Menace would be the very first. I think that's the farthest back they've gone chronologically. I could be wrong. And look up. I'm sure you can look up, watch this movie, then this show, this movie, this show, and kind of see how it all progresses.
I think there was stuff like in in Acolyte. There's things from like actually all of Acolyte is way before the prequels.
Okay, so Acolyte first. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I've wanted to for a little bit, and it's still gonna be a while, but someone did a chronological cut of Lost.
Yep, I've heard of that. Yeah.
I want to watch that. I mean, I know that like the first episode of it is going to be pretty much the same. All of the one episode of Men in Black and Jacob, like the little origin story there.
Well, and then none of that, but like, then we go through a big stretch where it's just everybody's flashbacks before the island, and then it's like we're watching Jack be a doctor and everything, and it's like I feel like that was where it would be a little bit of a slog because those are interesting. Well, some of them are interesting when it's along with the island, because you're there for the island. You're not there to watch that long a stretch of flashbacks. And some of the flashbacks are terrible.
We should do a Lost episode of like rank top 5 flashbacks. Episode.
I'm down for any kind of Lost episode. You know that. And so we've done our episodes where it's we break down a specific episode of a show, and I know I've said before we should do that for the Through the Looking Glass, but that would be like a 3 or 4 hour podcast because that episode alone is so long. So we may have to do a different episode if we do that for Lost.
Yeah, I like, now that I think about it, I like my idea because I can already think of like 3 off the top of my head. Although one of them would be like cheating. I think it would be like Desmond's when well, it was a flashback. It was his like near death flashback in season 3. I liked that whole storyline.
Yeah,
but it's a little bit of cheating, right? Because it's not really flashback. It's kind of him from the island remembering stuff, but I don't know.
I think it's a flashback. I mean, I think I would count it. That would be a good one. I think we could do that. If we're doing top 5, that would be tough because there's a lot of really good ones. I'd have to go back and remind myself what they all were.
Yeah, I've got like 3 for sure that I know off the top of my head are top picks.
I'm sure you're thinking about Shannon and Boone hooking up as your number 1, right?
I was also thinking of episode 3, Tabula Rasa. Where Kate is hiding with that one Aussie guy.
Oh, the peach man, Ray Mullen, the peach farmer with one arm. Actually, that's not the worst Kate flashback, though.
Well, Kate just doesn't. What is the worst Kate flashback?
The one where she robs a bank to get the plane.
I like that a little bit more because I like to see bad girl Kate. I liked that one more than just her on a peach farm.
If you're going to bad girl Kate, go when you find out what she did to her dad, or go when she accidentally kills her friend Thomas. Maybe that's the worst one, actually. Her accidentally killing Thomas because she was trying to sneak into the hospital to see her mom.
I think that one is that also the same one as her like teaming up with Sawyer's spurned lover.
No, because that one came in season 2. Because I think we met her first in Sawyer's flashback, and then there was another Kate one, or the one where she married Nathan Fillion was kind of
Yes, that. Okay, that's the one. That is the fact that they took Nathan Fillion and wasted him for an episode, like, and it was a boring flat. No one cares. No one cares about you marrying Nathan Fillion and then being like, all right, that's cool. See ya.
yeah. All right, well, we'll have to put that on the list. That with our list and how far out we're at with that, you may hear that one in the fall.
Yeah, we've got our schedule set.
And even by the time we record it, and by the time you listen to it, I think over a month has passed between episodes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of episodes, last episode, let's go into trivia, because last episode we talked about the episode Slap Bet, and if you didn't listen to that one, it's a pretty good episode. We got our buddy Alex with us, and if you remember that episode, that was the debut of Robin Sparkles. Now, I asked what real-life pop star was Robin Sparkles based off of, and she was based off of Tiffany. Now, Tiffany was the one who did I Think We're Alone Now was one of her biggest hits, even though that was originally written by Tommy Shondell and was much better done by him. And she went to like malls all across the country playing that song, among others. But like she was the mall girl, huge mall. Like she had concerts at stadiums. Or, I don't know stadiums, but she had concerts at other halls. But like she did all these mall tours. So,
but even with that, because that was before our time. I first knew who she was because of when she was referenced in an episode of Full House.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That was right in the peak of her popularity in those 3 months.
Yeah. And for this week, a little thing that I had heard about and then forgot about, and then I recognized it again. There is a hidden 90s TV star that is in several episodes of Skeleton Crew. So who is that?
And we do mean a star. Not like,
Yes.
oh, it's just he was on the background of like Growing Pains once. No. It's a star.
Nope. He had a star billing role in a 90s TV show.
Yep. You said he. That narrows it down.
Well, to be fair, there's not a lot of women on this show to begin with.
Now it's an all guys show too, so that narrows it even more down.
Yeah.
Coach. Got it.
Craig T. Nelson could fit well in Star Wars universe. I feel like they could use him.
Speaking of Coach, because one of the guys in there ends up, I can't remember his name, but he's the voice of Patrick on SpongeBob.
Oh, Bill Fagerbaki, yeah.
Yeah, not too long ago, we went to Disney World, and it's next to like Universal Islands of Adventure, which has a Spider-Man ride. And I just had found this out like right before we left, that the Spider-Man ride, 2 of the voices on that ride are, one of them is his voice,
Yeah.
Patrick, and then one of them is the voice of Squidward. And so they have both of those guys on the ride as bad guys.
That's cool. It's kind of a little hidden Easter egg.
Yeah, Bill Fagerbaki was Hydro Man, and then Squidward was Dr. Octopus.
Okay. And that's on a Disney one, right?
What?
And that's at a Disney property?
That's at Universal Islands of Adventure.
Oh, I was gonna say it would be interesting because they've made their career off of voices for Nickelodeon. So it'd be interesting to have them cross over to Disney.
Yeah. It's a weird relationship right now because Universal Islands of Adventure came out like in the late 90s, and so they did like a partnering with Marvel Studios. All right, it wasn't Marvel Studios at the time; it was just the Marvel comic books. That they had a Marvel superheroes land in their Universal parks, and then like 20 years later or 15 years later, Disney buys Marvel, and so one of the stipulations of their deal is that when they partnered with Universal, part of the contract was no parks east of the Mississippi, no theme parks, can have any of the Marvel characters that are used in that Marvel theme land. So Disney World in Orlando, Florida can't use Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America. That's why you're not going to see any of those meet and greets there. But you go to Disneyland in Anaheim, California, and you can go see Adventures Campus, and they have Spider-Man and Captain America meet and greets, and like all these other like Marvel properties there. And so Disney now, they like Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't big back then, so they do have a Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Epcot because Universal Islands of Adventure has no Guardians of the Galaxy representation at all. So there you go. If you didn't know that, there's a little bit of information about theme parks.
So Matt, you're the Disney guy. Are
I am.
Disneyland and Disney World, are they different enough that you think people should go to both at some point in their lives?
Absolutely. Even certain rides. So, for instance, one of the big ones that is majorly different is Pirates of the Caribbean. And so the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in the original Disneyland is like 15 minutes long. And it's great. It's really well done. But then you go to Disney World and it's only like 6 or 7 minutes long. And so like when you ride, people who have ridden the Disneyland one first and then go to Disney World, they're like, wait, it's already over. What happened to all this other stuff that we had on this other ride? And so it just is a lot quicker pace. So even rides that they have at both are different enough. But there's also rides that they don't have at one of the parks versus the other. So like the Guardians of the Galaxy ride in Epcot at Disney World is fantastic. One of the best rides I've ever rode. And it's a roller coaster, but the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction that they have in Disneyland is the former Tower of Terror, like the drop coaster.
Yeah.
It's not a coaster, it's just the drop tower. And so completely different experiences. And I hate drop towers, so I don't like the Guardians of the Galaxy in California Adventure, but I like it in Orlando.
Right. I haven't been to any of those parks in years, but it sounds interesting. I want to go. I've been to Disney World, and I've been to Disney's California Adventure. I've never been to Disneyland, and then I've been to the Universal in Orlando. Is what
You've been to Disney's California Adventure?
Yeah, it was back in high school.
It's like right across the way from Disneyland.
I know we had time to go to one, and me and Laura and my mom voted California Adventure. My dad voted Disneyland, so we went to California Adventure.
You guys should have done a hopper, actually, because that's when we're in Disneyland, we do the hopper, so we can go back and forth. Because there's certain like points of the park when I'm in Disneyland, and I'll look at like ride times, and I see California Adventure. There's rides that are closer in California Adventure than they are at the back of the park in Disneyland, and so it's easier to just walk over to that and go through the gates and then get on those. So when Angie and we do Disneyland, we always do hoppers, whereas with Disney World, the parks are spread out enough. It can take like a whole 30 minutes to an hour to get from one park to inside another park, and it's a little harder to do park hopping there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if I do either one of those, I want to make it a good big trip. And I think I've done is it in Illinois that they have Six Flags? I've been to that one too.
There's a number of Six Flags. I think Illinois has some.
Whatever the closest one, it's like south of Minnesota, whatever that one is. I've been to that one.
I don't know. I don't know what one that would be. Okay. I've been to the Six Flags in St. Louis and Six Flags in Texas, and I think there's two in Texas actually. The Six Flags in San Antonio, and I don't think I've been to too many others outside of that. But, well, there you go. Yeah. I would love, like, I'm not going to do this because I've already started 2 podcasts. One of them's done, and this is the other one that's continuing. Yeah. But I would totally be on a theme park podcast, especially about Disney and Universal and Orlando parks or Disneyland parks, because I love them, love to talk about them. But
well, maybe
that's not what this episode is.
Whenever I go to Disney, one of those parks, if we're still doing this podcast, maybe we can do an episode about it, because I'm sure you have the knowledge. You can just, I remember that ride and that ride and that ride.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
But now, I mean, I haven't been to any of these parks in probably like 15 plus years. So I'd be like, I don't remember. I was 10.
I'll tell you the behind the scenes of stuff of it. Like, oh yeah, that one, the Imagineer Marty Sklar did this, and then on that one with Tony Baxter and Joe Rohde. Like, I know people who designed the rides. Now, if you're a Disney adult, quote unquote, you probably do too. But for the average person, if I'm like, name an Imagineer, they'd be like, I don't know.
Well,
So,
that's like for me. It'd be like if you said in 60 seconds name as many Muppet performers as you could. I would name all. I would still be naming names after 60 seconds.
yeah, I'd get like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Which is still good.
Yeah, oh, it's good. I was
average
surprised. I thought
person.
you would get Jim Henson, Frank Oz, and be out.
Nope, I'd get like Richard Hunt and Steve Whitmore and there's another Richard, isn't there? Or Dave Goles.
Yeah.
I think there's another one I know that it's somewhere back.
I think you're thinking of Jerry Nelson.
Jerry Nelson,
because that's the main 6 of the Muppet Show. Yeah. But and so interesting thing. So listeners, if you want to, I think the only talk we've done a little bit about behind the scenes is we talked about Muppets Haunted Mansion, and you talked about behind the scenes of the Disney Haunted Mansion. But if you're looking for our Haunted Mansion episode, you won't find one because we didn't do that. Instead, we talked about Haunted Mansion and Disney when we were talking about Muppets Haunted Mansion, and all of that is in our Stranger Things episode of all things. You remember that?
Right.
And then we had our friend Dan on for that one, and he just went silent for like that 15-20 minutes and said, I came on to talk about Stranger Things. You can find that on our YouTube channel because it's so old now, but that was hilarious.
Speaking of which, we stopped talking about Skeleton Crew 16 minutes ago, so we're going to wrap it up.
I will probably cut some of this out.
No, keep it all in. All right. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and go to Disney.